My name is Jamon McKinney, or you can just call me Juice because that is my nickname. Let's discuss the Jacksonville Jaguars and how they will fare during the 2020-21 NFL season. Let's get right to it. Now, Jaguars fans, I'm going to cut straight to the point right here. This episode is not going to be pretty. And by the way, I'm not going to just bash on the Jaguars this whole episode. I will go over the positives and negatives of this roster, mainly negatives. And let's discuss why I'm not so high on this Jaguars team, because I'm just not. And I'm going to say this right now. I will not be shocked if this team is picking number 1 overall in next year's draft. Now, before I actually get into the record prediction and the roster and things of that nature, let me say this. The way I sort of rate my teams is based on how dynamic they are. And I'm sorry, I just don't think the Jacksonville Jaguars are a very dynamic team. I don't. The top 10 offenses last year, and by the way, the Jaguars are not going to be close to a top 10 offense in my opinion. The top 10 offenses last year, 9 of those 10 teams were 500 or better. The only team that was not 500 or better was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that was because of Jameis Winston's turnovers. Let me say this about Gardner Minshew. I was pleasantly surprised by what he presented to the table last year. I'm still not completely sold on Minshew, but I definitely liked what I saw last year, but I don't think Gardner Minshew is a dynamic quarterback. I don't think this running back core has a whole lot of depth behind Leonard Fournette, who can't seem to stay healthy. I think this wide receiver core has some talent, but it's not a great dynamic wide receiver core. And this, according to Pro Football Focus, is the 26th ranked offensive line this season. Now, let's look at the defense. Is the defense dynamic? Well, you lost Calais Campbell, you lost Marcel Darius, you lost AJ Boye, and you lost Jalen Ramsey. Some really good players, man. Those are some real Pro Bowl level players. And listen, the top 10 defenses last year, 9 of those 10 teams finished 500 or better. The only team that did not finish 500 or better are the Denver Broncos. And that was because washed up Joe Flacco was playing most of their games. So the point I'm trying to make is the dynamic teams are winning. I don't think Jacksonville's very dynamic. They're the least dynamic team in their division. I believe they're the worst overall team in their division. And last year, the Jaguars were the worst team in their division. I don't see that changing one bit this year, This team has the worst quarterback and head coach combo in this division. And that's a recipe for disaster, because we look at teams last year that were suffering from the worst head coach and quarterback combination last year. Washington last year, last in the division. The Chargers last year, because Philip Rivers was a mess at quarterback, last in the division. The Bengals last year, last in the division. The Jaguars, you guys, last in your division last year. The Lions last year. The Panthers, last in the division. Deshaun Watson is a better quarterback than Gardner Minshew. Ryan Tannehill is a better quarterback than Gardner Minshew. Philip Rivers, despite the fact that he's kind of washed up, I still think that he's more experienced and a better quarterback than Gardner Minshew. If I were to try to win a Super Bowl this year, I would pick Philip Rivers to start my team over Gardner Minshew. Okay, I understand that Philip Rivers has his problems, but at this point, I give the slight edge to Philip Rivers over Gardner Minshew. And listen, Bill O'Brien, you can talk greasy about Bill O'Brien all you want, but Bill O'Brien has made the playoffs 4 of his 6 seasons as the NFL head coach. Frank Wright, I think he's a very good, promising young head coach. Mike Vrabel, his team was in the AFC championship game last year. And I understand that Doug Monroe led this team to the AFC championship game a couple years ago. But I kind of feel like that was an anomaly for Doug Marrone. What makes Jay-Z, Beyonce, Kanye West, all these great rappers so good is they're not one-hit wonders. Same with all these quarterbacks. And same with these head coaches. You take away Bill Belichick's best season, that guy's still a Hall of Famer. Things of that nature. You take away Mike Tomlin's best and worst season, that guy's still a Hall of Fame head coach in my opinion, okay? Doug Monroe, okay, when you look at things, okay, he's got a record for his career of 37-45. As far as I'm concerned, yes, Doug Monroe made the AFC Championship game a couple years ago, but as far as I'm concerned, he's Fetty Wap at the moment. Remember when Fetty Wap dropped Trap Queen and Again and those great songs. Ever since that, Fetty Wap has flopped. He's not been a great rapper. That's what Doug Marrone is. Fetty Wap at the moment, in my opinion, okay? Now, Gardner Minshew. I want to address Gardner Minshew because like I said, I actually liked what I saw for Minshew last year. I think he had a very solid year. He went 6-6 as a starter. He had a 60.6 completion percentage, 21 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a 91.2 passer rating. And honestly, you can make a strong argument that Gardner Minshew last year was the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. My vote went to Kyler Murray, but Gardner Minshew had the wins, and he had the statistics too. So I would not have been mad if Gardner Minshew won Rookie of the Year last year. Now, my problem with Gardner Minshew is I think that he has a very high floor, but not a high ceiling at all. Meaning, I just don't think this guy is ever going to reach elite status. I don't think he'll ever be close to elite status. He's just physically limited as a thrower. You know, he's athletic enough, but not super duper athletic. He doesn't have a cannon for an arm. And I don't think Gardner Minshew is the type of quarterback that can put a team on his back. He's definitely a trailer, not a truck, okay? And I do think that when we look at Gardner Minshew, just admit this, Jaguars fans, defensive coordinators, they're not staying up at night because they're trying to prepare for Gardner Minshew. They're not losing sleep over Gardner Minshew, trying to prepare for him that upcoming week. They're just not. He's not a special quarterback. I think that he could be a very, very solid quarterback for a long time, but we'll see. And I honestly don't think Gardner Minshew is being put in a great position to succeed. I don't love Gardner Minshew's offensive supporting cast as far as his offensive line goes, his wide receivers go, and a running back. I think that unit is okay. Leonard Fournette has yet to play a full season. You know, I was very high on Leonard Fournette when he was drafted. You know, looking back on things, the Jaguars should have drafted Deshaun Watson. I know people calculate to Patrick Mahomes, but no one really saw Patrick Mahomes being that good. You know, this good. I thought Patrick Mahomes was going to be a good quarterback, not the best player in football. I felt Deshaun Watson was going to one day become an elite quarterback, and that's what he's become. So he was the safest pick. You probably should have taken Deshaun Watson over Leonard Fournette. But either way, you know, it is what it is. You whiff on some draft picks every now and then. You know, I whiffed on Leonard Fournette. I felt that he was going to be arguably maybe the next Adrian Peterson, and just hasn't worked out that way. You know, Leonard Fournette is a good, solid starting running back. You know, he's a good starting two-down running back that does not offer much in the receiving game. And Leonard Fournette also has yet to play a full season, so he's not even been able to really stay healthy throughout his entire career. So Leonard Fournette's okay. Chris Thompson is okay, but nothing really too particularly dynamic at that running back position. Now, the wide receiver core, I'm not going to say it's a dynamic group, but it's a solid group. You know, DJ Chark had 73 catches last year, had over 1,000 yards. He's a very solid deep threat. He's a very good jump ball wide receiver. You know, not very good, but solid, I would say. D.D. Westbrook, I thought D.D. Westbrook could honestly become a star one day. You know, I saw him at Oklahoma be a Heisman Trophy finalist with Baker Mayfield throwing him the football a couple years ago. I thought that D.D. Westbrook has special wide receiver written all over him. And that's honestly not been the case up to this point in his career. He's disappointed, in my opinion. You know, he had 660 yards last year, 3 touchdown catches. That's not bad, but I thought D.D. Westbrook was going to be the next big thing, and just has turned out to be an okay wide receiver. Now, Laviska Shenault definitely fits this offense. The kid out of Colorado, you guys drafted. I think that he's a solid player. He's not the fastest wide receiver, which does concern me a little bit. That's the biggest knock I had on Laviska Shenault at Colorado, was he's not very fast. I think that he's college football level fast, but I don't know how fast he will be at the NFL level, but he does know how to get open. He's very creative with the ball in his hands, and I think that he definitely fits the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. And Jay Gruden is now the offensive coordinator in Jacksonville. I think that he's a decent offensive coordinator, not a very good head coach, however. So, you know, he's not going to be the head coach of this team. He'll be the offensive coordinator, and I think that Jay Gruden is going to be happy being the offensive coordinator. You know, he's decent, okay? At tight end, Tyler Eifert. I'm not losing sleep over Tyler Eifert. He's been in the NFL for 7 years. His best season was in 2015, in which he had 615 yards and 13 touchdowns. Outside of that, he's been an average tight end at best. That's just my opinion. The offensive line last year struggled. You know, they were ranked the 26th best overall offensive line. Jawan Taylor does have some talent, but I'm not quite so sure that he'll ever reach that potential because I felt that he would be better as a rookie. Maybe he takes a leap in year number 2. We shall see. Cam Robinson, he was drafted out of Alabama a couple years ago. He has not lived up to his draft pick, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm not sold on the offensive line. And that's a concern because you actually have some decent wide receivers, but if you don't have a good offensive line to block for those guys, whoop-de-doo. Now, looking at the defense. The defense, like I said, lost a lot of key players. Calais Campbell gone. Marcel Darius gone. AJ Boye gone. Jalen Ramsey gone. Now, I do think that this defense has some bright spots. I think that Josh Allen was an absolute steal, last year in the draft. He had 11 tackles for loss, 10.5 sacks last year. He's a monster. He's a beast. He could be the next great pass rusher. So that's a bright spot in your defense. Yannick Ngakoue, he could potentially be traded this season. He's been thrown out in trade rumors for the past, a year or two. So we'll see. But, Ngakoue had 8 sacks last year. He's not bad. Clavon Chason was a very solid first-round pick, along with C.J. Henderson, who I felt was a very, very good defensive back out of Florida. So I like C.J. Henderson, but overall, those are 4 players, and 4 players don't make up a defense. So I'm not completely sold on this Jaguars defense. They've lost a lot of key players, and ultimately, I'm sorry, Jaguars fans, but there's only 257 wins to go around to each NFL team if there are no ties, and I think the Jaguars only get 2 of those wins. I think the Jaguars are going to be a 2-14 football team heading into the 2020-21 NFL season. Not a great offensive line, not a very dynamic team. Is Gardner Minshew dynamic? No. Is Leonard Fournette dynamic? No. Is DJ Chark dynamic? No. The defense has some holes overall that I just don't feel great about. And this is a team that last year was last in the division. This will continue in 2020. And I think the schedule is brutal. The scheduling gods of the NFL did not give the Jaguars any breaks. I'm just going to highlight the games that I think the Jaguars can potentially win, because I think there's going to be a lot of losses on the schedule. I highlighted 4 games on their schedule. I look at the Lions game. That could be a win. Off a bye week versus the Chargers. That could be a win. And then I look at the Titans at home. That could be a win. I look at the Bears at home. That could be a win. So I only see about 4 winnable games on this schedule. I think the Colts week number 1, that will most likely be a loss. At Titans week number 2, that will most likely be a loss. By the way, I'm not officially predicting when you're going to lose these games. I'm not giving game-by-game predictions. I'm just kind of giving you a gauge on how I feel about each game and who should be favored. That's just what I'm doing right here, okay, to be very clear. Now, week number 3 versus the Dolphins, I think that's probably going to be a potential loss. The Dolphins definitely could lose to you guys. I put that in the toss-up category, actually, so take that back. That's in the toss-up category. At Bengals, that's a toss-up. You definitely could potentially win that game. I just believe in Joe Burrow a lot. I think that he's probably going to beat you, okay? At Texans, loss. Lions, like I said, that's definitely a winnable game in my opinion. Bye week, Chargers, that's a winnable game. Texans at home, that's a loss. At Packers, that's a loss. They're a very good team. Steelers, that's a loss. They were a very good team last year with backup quarterbacks. Browns, that's probably a loss, Vikings, probably a loss. Like I said, Titans, that second Titans game, you could definitely win that game potentially. At Ravens, don't even think about winning that game. That's definitely a game I will favor Baltimore in. Bears, maybe a win. And Colts, I put that in the toss-up category. So that is overall how I feel about the Jaguars' schedule and how I feel about their overall team. I'm just not very confident in the Jaguars this year. They are going to go 2-14 during the 2020 NFL season, and I would not be shocked if the Jaguars are the number 1 overall team in next year's draft. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juice Alert Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. And I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juice Alert Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God bless day, and I'm out.